They're going to be on YouTube.
Yeah.
How do you change to see who's in the center of the screen?
It automatically does that based on who's speaking.
Okay. Never mind.
I believe that's true.
We'll see. Oh,
Right, that's right. All right. Good evening. It is Thursday, April 9th, 2020 at 7 p.m. In accordance with Executive Order 2020-01D, Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Local Schools Board of Education meeting this evening is being held via live stream. The link was posted to the district website earlier today as previously announced. Board members are also in compliance with health department recommendations and maintain proper social distancing. In fact, our members, including the superintendent and treasurer, are either at home or in different rooms for our meeting this evening. As the presiding officer, I am in the boardroom at the Education Center on Upper Bellbrook Road. This meeting is a meeting of the Bellbrook Board of Education in public via live stream for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. Though it is not a public community meeting, appropriate notice was given for public participation and accommodations were made to enable that participation. Mr. Lyman, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs.
I'm here.
France,
here.
Mrs. Long,
Here.
Mr. Price,
Here.
Mrs. Sloughman.
Here.
All right, will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the
United States of America.
America.
Which is staying
under God,
Stands one nation.
on
liberty and justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. We won't get any accolades for unison on that one, I don't think, but considering the technology, I think it's pretty good. All right, Mr. Lyman, would you please give us the treasurer's report?
Okay, could I get a motion to approve the minutes of the March 12th board meeting?
So moved.
Mrs. France? Second? Mrs. Sloughman? Any questions or comments on the meeting? Any corrections?
Nope.
All right, hearing none, Mr. Lyman, call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
and Mrs. Sloughman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Got to get a motion to approve the treasurer's report for March 31st, 2020.
So moved.
Karen? Mrs. Long? Is there a
Second.
second? Mrs. France?
Okay.
All right. Mr. Liming?
Yes, I have a few things I wanted to discuss. I think we have some financial reports that we want to show at this time. You have them, Josh? Josh, you there?
Those were shared on the website. Were we going to show them during the meeting here too?
I don't know. I thought we were, but if we aren't, that's fine. I can just
They're
go
not
ahead.
on the website.
Yeah, once just give 1 second here. Josh will pull them up.
Okay, sounds good.
Great. Great.
Okay, there we go. That first one of the blue pages in your hard copy agenda. It's what's up right now. This is the report that shows the actual numbers compared to what's budgeted on that particular row. And starting with revenue, you can see from real estate taxes on down that with 75% of the year, the fiscal year expired, we hope to operate off of that. And we would like to see revenues at or above the 75% and expenses at or below that. So we're looking pretty good in all of the large categories here. I'd like to note on expenditures, the employee salaries, 73% has been spent with 75% of the year expired. So although we do have a 3-pay month coming up, that will increase that number. We're pretty much right on target with our estimate for salaries. If you want to flip over to on the hard copy agenda, it's page 3, the next one that Josh has. This one looks a lot like the last one, but the numbers are different. I think you still have the last one up there right now, Josh.
Yep.
This next one shows the percentage of our actual number compared to the total for that category, or like revenue, what percentage of revenue, there it is. It shows that 72% of our revenue at this point comes from real estate taxes. That's because we just received our second half tax settlement. And you can see smaller numbers there for the state funding. In the expenditures area, if we add the salaries, wages, retirement, and insurance, it's 78% of our budget. And that's what we've been saying all along, 78 or 79% is what we expect that to be. And then on the following two are the pie charts that are results of the numbers we just viewed. The first one is the revenue pie chart. And I just include these because for those that are visual learners, it might be easier to see from the pie chart the big chunk of our revenue that comes from real estate taxes and how heavily we have to rely on those because of our low state funding. Do you have that page, Josh?
You have to turn your head sideways. There we go.
There we go. Okay, well, you can see the big part of the pie there is from real estate, and the darker section there is state funding. Just illustrates what we've been saying for the last many years. If you want to flip over to the next one, the last one that we have, this one is expenditures, and As in any school district, the greater part of your expenditures are salaries, wages, and retirement and insurance benefits. And you can see the breakdown there of the numbers that I showed on the last numerical page that I had up. That's really all I have. Any questions about any of this?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Go ahead and call the roll.
Okay, Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
and Mr. Carpenter.
Yes. Motion passes. All right, did we have any?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to remind everybody the agenda is online. If some of that information was not streaming, that the agenda is online in that pop-up box. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, going on to correspondence, did anyone have any correspondence from community members? I know I did not.
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
Nope.
All right. Our next is the open communication period, and we did have no individuals who signed up to speak this evening at the meeting. We had a technology ready, but we didn't have any takers. So we'll move on to new business. Central office employment resignation leave of absence. Our first item is the approval of a 5-year employment contract extension commencing August 1st, 2021 through July 31st, 2026 for Dr. Douglas Cozad as superintendent of schools. And Mr. Lemming, I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. That was Mrs. France. All right. Any comments from board members? I know I'd like to say that it's been a great pleasure to work with Dr. Cozad this few years so far. What an incredible job that he has done, especially under the tumultuous times that we have had. The direction that the district is going is well on its way. We've seen some tremendous things that he's done under his leadership. I greatly appreciate that. I can hardly imagine that without some of his background in technology that we'd be doing online school right now under the current circumstances. So it's kudos to you for that, sir. Any other comments?
No.
All right, Mr. Lemming, would you call the roll, please?
Okay, Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes, absolutely.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Absolutely, yes.
and Mrs. France.
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud to be the superintendent of Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Schools, and it's great working with all of you board members, all the staff and the community, and just we have some great things that lie ahead of us, and just work in collaboration with everybody. It's a team effort, and just really proud to be your superintendent, and glad to have another 5 additional years here. So thank you very much for entrusting that in me. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet. All right, on to the superintendent's report.
All right. 7A here, certified licensed employment resignation, leave of absence, supplemental duty. Recommend acceptance of verbal resignation at the paid position from Craig Holder as high school assistant softball coach effective March 25th, 2020.
So moved.
Mrs. France,
Second.
Mrs. Sloughman. Any comments, questions? All right, please call the roll.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, recommend approval of the following supplemental duty contract for the 2019-20 school year. Heather Hebrank, high school assistant softball at 16%, It's from Craig Holder there.
Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
Mrs. Luffman,
Yes. Second.
Mrs. Long? Any questions or comments? All right, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
Motion passes. Now let's hope we end up with a softball season.
Yes, let's hope so. Supplemental duty other. Number 3, be resolved, the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Board of Education has offered these supplemental duty positions via posting to licensed employees of the district. The board either had no qualified licensed employee applicants or no employees applied for these positions were offered to non-licensed persons. The following non-licensed persons have met qualifications for the board posting of supplemental duty positions as noted below. So number 4, recommend approval of the following supplemental duty volunteer for the 2019-20 school year. Craig Holder, high school assistant softball.
Do we have a
So
motion?
moved.
Mrs.
Moved.
France? A second? I can second it. Any questions or comments? As
He
I-
still wanted to help out, just wasn't enough to get pay, so he's volunteering.
Right,
To have that season. Yeah.
Kind.
yeah, that's good. Thank you. Tell them thank yous for that. All right, Mr. Liming, please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
and Mrs. Sloughman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, B, support staff employment resignation leave of absence. Recommend acceptance of resignation from special needs assistant Kyle Castle at the end of the 2019-20 school year.
We have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Fluffman and a second from Mrs. Long.
Second. Yes.
Any
Again,
questions?
he's going off to student teach, so that's why he is having to give up his position. So he's getting or trying to get the opportunity to be a teacher. So that's why he's giving up his position.
Okay, very good. Well, we wish him the very best then. Are there any other comments, questions? Okay, Mr. Liming?
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
and Mr. Carpenter.
Yes. Motion passes.
All right, C, amend policy number 8210, recommend approval of resolution providing for a temporary change to current board policy 8210, school calendar, which will permit makeup of all class hours via remote distance learning for the remainder of 2019-20 school year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm going to go ahead and read that resolution. So whereas the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Local Board of Education has adopted a policy and plan pursuant to revised code 3313.482 that allows for the superintendent to require students to access complete lessons via remote or distance learning to make up hours in that school year when it's necessary to close school buildings for disease, epidemic, hazardous weather conditions, et cetera, board policy number 8210. Whereas the board's current policy limits the number of days that can be made up through virtual instruction to 3 days and requires written consent from the teachers union. Whereas the state legislature passed House Bill 197, which became effective March 27, 2020. And whereas House Bill 197 allows for the board to amend policy number 8210 and any plan developed under the policy to make up all hours via remote or distance learning in the 2019-20 school year in which school buildings were closed via the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, be resolved that the Board of Education hereby adopts a temporary change in board policy number 8210, effective only for the 2019-20 school year, that eliminates the maximum number of days or hours that can be made up under the policy and allows for immediate implementation, retroactive to March 17, 2020. Be it further resolved, the superintendent of schools has or shall develop a plan and take whatever steps he deems necessary to comply with House Bill 197 and any government orders regarding student instruction during the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Sloughman, and I'll second it. Any questions or comments?
Yes, quick question here, Dr. Kozad. It's the obvious, but maybe for the community it should be stated. Even though there is remote learning, it's not automated. There are actually teachers behind the scenes that are very much involved in their students' lesson plan development and working diligently and putting in the requisite hours to do that, correct? They are not, as far as I know, just having an extended vacation, correct?
Correct. It's not a canned curriculum that we're just throwing out there and kids are just assigned to that and they interact with that canned curriculum. That is not the case. Our teachers, within just a few days of finding out that we were going to this remote learning, got their lesson plans together and they're going full tilt every day of interacting with students. So definitely interaction and teaching going on, just a little bit differently than what it's been. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Yeah,
Any
it's the
other
obvious.
comments?
It's the obvious, but some people may need to be informed about that. So
Sure. And at the end of I'm going to go over a little bit at the end of the meeting here about the remote learning plan and so forth. So I can go into a little bit more of that detail on that.
very good.
Yep.
Great, thank you very much. Any other comments? All right, Mr. Lyman, please call the roll.
Okay. Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
and Mr. Price.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, D, 2020-21 school calendar revision. Recommend approval to revise the 2021 district-wide school calendar, reflect the addition of parent-teacher conference dates. So everything else is the same on here, but the administrators and the union and staff worked on those parent-teacher conference dates. So that's the only addition onto here.
All
So
right,
moved. So moved.
thank you, Ms. France. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Sloughman? Any questions or comments? All right, thank you for that explanation, Dr. Kozad. Mr. Lyman, will you call the roll?
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes. Yes.
and Mrs. Long.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, school fees, to recommend approval of student fees for the 2020-21 school year. I do have one change on that. There was a mistake before we get a motion here. So for 2020-21 all-day academic kindergarten tuition, it should be $400, not $300. We increased that.
Correct.
So actually, our kindergarten tuition is actually $3,600 a year. We just do it in 9 monthly payments of $400 for next year.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Brown,
Second.
Mrs. Sloughman?
And if I may, if you look at a lot of these, they are pretty similar to what they were last year, or fairly close. A few of them have increased a little bit. Most of them are pretty similar to what we did last year. Want to also note on here, so that kindergarten tuition, that's part of our phase 3 plan, is to increase that kindergarten tuition. Another piece of it was, and you'll see it on the third page, I guess, is the music. It's an additional $50 because that $50 is going into increasing of fees, just like athletics, the music and so forth. Their fees are increasing by $50 also. To offset those costs, those recommendations, if you remember back from the performance audit, that was part of the recommendations of trying to close that gap with our peer districts. So that's an attempt to kind of close that gap of raising those fees by $50.
Correct. All right, any other comments? The vast majority of items, they are either the same or only slightly different. You're right. see that very plainly.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Lyman, call the roll.
Okay, Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
Motion passes.
F, School Resource Officer, recommend approval of the agreement with Sugar Creek Township for school resource officer services for the 2020-21 school year. No change in the 2019-20 contract.
All right. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Mrs. France and Mrs. Long.
Second. Yeah.
And just to note that, Officer Luke Terry is our school resource officer, does a fantastic job working with the staff and administration, and also has been very helpful with all the different traffic patterns that have occurred due to our transportation changes. So we have a very good relationship with the township police department and Officer Terry, and obviously want to continue that. So we appreciate all that they do for us and say thanks to them.
Does
Absolutely.
he also work at the middle school? Not
Correct.
just the high school?
Correct. So he's at the middle school, high school. He splits time between the two.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, Mr. Liming, please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
and Mrs. Sloughman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
G, donation, recommend acceptance of the following donation with gratitude. Bellbrook Lions Club, $15,000 cash donation to the BHS Athletic Department for miscellaneous equipment purchases.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Or whoever.
Yeah, whoever.
I think I
That
heard
was
Mrs. Flan
so
first.
nice. 15,000. Oh my goodness.
That is awesome. That is so very generous on their part.
Yeah, the Lions Club is extremely supportive of the school district and the community, and very gracious and very giving with their not only money but time and effort, and just their attitude, and just will do anything for the community. So we really appreciate all that they do for our community.
Absolutely. Any other comments? All right, Mr. Liming.
Okay, Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
and Mr. Carpenter.
Yes, thank you so much. Motion passes.
So next here, items information, board member comments. Revisions to board policy, there's quite a few board policy revisions. Again, this is just the first read. So we will come back at the next board meeting and approve these. So some of these were, quite a few of these were, documentation of staff members, making sure they have licenses, and that's documented. We now have to recommend substitutes twice a year, one each semester. That's a new law by the legislature. I'm not quite sure the purpose of that, but so we have to recommend our subs twice a year. And then also updating our graduation requirements in there also. So again, read through those. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call.
Doug, can we take some comments now or questions now?
Sure.
I was looking at the drug and alcohol testing of CDL license holders and other employees who do safety sensitive functions. And one of the things I'm curious about, as you know, Ohio has the medical marijuana provision, and for those that are prescribed that. And so I was just kind of curious how that lines up with, for example, on the first page there, item A, it says it defines what an illegal drug is. and it talks about it being pursuant to federal law in addition to state and local. And as you well know, or probably know, is that marijuana, any usage is not considered a legal substance at the federal level. And in the next paragraph down, B, it says, in the second sentence in that, it says the term does not include any legally obtained prescription drug used for its intended purposes in its prescribed quantity, unless such use would impair the individual's ability to safely perform safety-sensitive functions. And so where the enormous gray area comes in, this is a hypothetical, right? But it could become an actuality. You could have someone that does have this and then does feel that they need to use it, and potentially could use it before they would go drive a bus or whatever, or an hour or two before. So I don't know. The crux of the matter is, do we comply with federal guidance on that or state guidance with respect to medical marijuana in a nutshell?
That would not be allowed to be used by especially someone that's a bus driver, someone that's driving a machine like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we would probably do a combination of that, but they would not be allowed to be under the influence of any type of drug.
Okay.
And we essentially have that covered by the fact in paragraph A there, right, where we say pursuant to federal laws and regulations, because that's where you have the legal justification to have a policy like that.
Right. And I
Okay.
can dig into that a little bit more, but obviously that we would not allow or want that kind of person under that kind of impairment of dealing with any of our children or anything like that, especially on the school bus.
So I think you got it covered with the federal
Yeah.
element there, at least under the current laws of the land. So
Yeah.
okay.
Again, these are policies that not only, we work with Neola for these policies, so they have their attorneys that look through these, and then also we have our own attorneys look through these, especially something like this, and make sure that it meets not only what they believe is the law, but also our negotiated agreements and such. So we have a few sets of eyes on these things.
Okay.
Going over and make sure that we comply with them.
All right.
Definitely.
But Mr. Price, thank you for bringing up that question and comment, especially for the public to be able to hear that we're carefully reviewing that as well.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, going on to our graduation, class of 2020.
Yeah, so a few of these, sorry. So as of there's a lot of, as everybody knows, every day it seems like every day, there's things that change, and one thing that we think is accurate and for sure one day there's an announcement or something, and the next day there's not. So we do right now have our graduation scheduled for May 16th at Trent Arena. Do I think that's going to happen on May 16th? No, I don't. I really don't think it's going to happen. But, according to the governor's executive orders and such, we're only out until May 1st. So we talk about the reality, May 4th, we could come back to school. I really have a hard time believing that we have come back to school. So, plan A is May 16th at Trent Arena. The likelihood of that is extremely small. So we are looking at, plan B and such for graduation. So we would, once we find out some more information from the state and the governor's office, we would reschedule that. And, just a possibility, I'm just thinking out loud here, possibility is, we could always do it at our stadium in June or July. We really want our graduates to have a ceremony. That is something that is sacred. We will do everything we possibly can to make sure that happens. So whether that's in June or July, again, but again, we're bound by what the governor says, what the president says and such. So right now it's still there, but it's probably not going to happen. Other things, all the trips that were in May have obviously been canceled. We had trips to New York, to DC. Some of those have been canceled. Some of them have been postponed, like the 8th grade DC trip for 8th graders. That has not been canceled, been postponed. We haven't determined when that's going to be yet. But June camps, the June basketball and baseball and other sports camps, they've been moved to July. So trying to move things further into July. Spring sports, like was alluded to earlier, I believe. The spring sports season has not been officially canceled. However, if you just look at the scheduling piece, if we would come back on May 4th, essentially you'd play a game or two and then you'd be right in the tournament. So it'd be a very different kind of season there. And again, I know OHSSA is waiting on the governor's office to make a decision, for them to make a decision on what they're going to do with spring sports. But right now, spring sports have not been canceled. But again, we'll wait for the word from the governor's office. Excuse me. Also, the high school is coming out with a document, frequently asked questions that are going to, that Mr. Hand either he has already or is going to shortly be sending this out to his students. Again, having to do with graduation, cap and gown, prom, and so forth. So the answers to those questions. So be on the lookout for that, because I know obviously especially at the high school level, there's a lot of questions and such for that. Greene County Career Center ribbon cutting. So again, they have a brand new building that's under construction. So they have a ribbon cutting on September 12th. The last I've heard, they're still on track of opening up at the beginning of next year. But Mrs. France, I don't know if you have anything to add on that. I know you had a meeting with the Career Center. You're a board member there.
Yeah, we had a board meeting last night. And as Mr. Deskins said, that everything's on track for the opening as we had planned it. So I assume that that date is still good.
Okay.
I was going to say, Mr. Deskins has scheduled an alternate date for the senior recognition for the Career Center, and he's got it July 25th. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to be happening there for sure.
Okay. Yeah, we're really waiting on guidance from the governor and before we try to make another date, a postponement or something for our graduation. So, yep. Next on the list here is a review of district-wide remote learning. Again, so we are just finishing up week 3 because we have a professional development day tomorrow. So we are finishing up week 3 of remote learning. We had 2 weeks, and then we had a week of spring break, and then we had this past week. So there's some feedback over the first 2 weeks. We revised our learning plan. Again, trying to, we're in a obviously a unique situation here. This is not a normal remote learning situation, even by the extent of remote learning. So we understand that there's families out there that, not only are they trying to help their kids with their schooling, but they might be working their job from home, or there might be kids that are watching younger siblings. And so there's a lot of factors and things going on. So we understand it's a very unique situation. So we put together a learning plan that essentially has 2 of the core subjects per day, and then electives on each of the day, different electives. So for example, on Monday, math and science, Monday and Thursday is math and science, and the electives then, various electives, for example, K-5 electives are music, STEM, art, and digital literacy on Monday. And then Tuesday, Friday are ELA and social studies, and then the K-5 electives are PE, health, and library and media center. So trying to chunk things a little bit. And also those assignments are posted no later than 8 a.m. on that day. And then they're not due until the next day that they have that class. So for example, a math lesson that was assigned on Monday, it's due on Thursday. So we do understand we're trying to provide some flexibility with people, with families. that they might not be able to get to it on Monday. Maybe they get to it on Monday night or Tuesday during the day, and they work on Tuesday's items on Wednesday. And really, Wednesday is a teacher-student family collaboration day. So we are using Google Meets. So I'm trying to meet individually with groups of students and so forth. So really trying to, again, in this era of this pandemic, is trying to over communicate, because we can feel real isolated. So trying to make sure that we're over communicating and making sure that we are making sure that people know what's going on and so forth. So I've slowed down a little bit this week with emails to parents, but just trying to keep everybody in the loop on various things going on. Any questions on that remote learning plan from anybody?
We had a lot of feedback from the community that we're really happy with. The fact that we're maintaining good communication and students are still engaged in learning.
And I know it's a big lift for parents. I mean, they are doing a lot of work with their kids of being the teacher in the house. So we really want to say thank you
Absolutely.
to the parents. They're just doing a tremendous amount of work. The teachers are putting those lessons out there and doing a lot of work of getting those lessons ready. So we want to thank the teachers and the staff and administrators also. But the parents at home are really trying to juggle a lot of things also. So you got a lot of people juggling things. You got teachers at home trying to juggle, they have their own kids, and then trying to juggle, teaching also. It's an all around unique situation that we hope people just are patient, are flexible, and we'll get through it. We'll get through this together. A lot of time in April and May, April especially, we spent a lot of time in the past on testing. All of our testing from the state has been waived for this school year. So we have, obviously, those interruptions aren't there this April. So we are able to focus on the learning that we're doing. So we just want to say thank you to everybody for all their appreciation or say thank you for all their hard work and appreciate everything that they're doing for our kids.
Can I make a comment here, please, Dr. Cousin?
Sure, definitely.
As a working mom, I'm working from home with a first and third grader. I will say, like, doing the classwork and keeping up with the job is very difficult. And I appreciate my children's teachers even more. I've gotten some feedback from friends and people about how it can be a lot. So I encourage parents to always reach out to the teachers. I've emailed the teachers almost daily, like, I'm not really sure what we're doing. Could you help me? And they have been very responsive. So reach out to the teachers. If you don't understand, if you're a little bit overwhelmed, already done that, and they've been very helpful. And I also want to point out to parents, just do the best you can. This is a lot. It is a lot. And I can't do it. I have a sitter coming every day to help me because I can't. So we just do the best we can. And I have talked to the counselors, and they're on board to help. We're all in this together, like you said, and there's a lot of people to help, and everybody understands we're overwhelmed. So, teachers, mental health people, it's okay.
Yeah, I would just echo that. Before someone just has a day or two go by and become more frustrated, please reach out to the teachers. They're going to be extremely flexible and understanding, and we're going to do, like I said, we're going to do the best we can. Also, obviously our counselors are available of reaching out, and they've done a great job of putting out information, putting out videos of how to deal with this situation also. So just over communicate with teachers, communicate with them. Don't let something fester for a while, and we're being flexible in this again. So if you think about it, on Thursday, I think it was the 12th of March, the governor said, we're going to online learning, remote learning. And by the next Tuesday, our teachers and our staff had this all put together. And so that's really kudos to our staff, but also kudos to, we've done, this is where it's really critical, where the preparation piece comes in, is we have been hitting hard of providing one-to-one Chromebooks for all of our students, grades, K to 12. And also, we've been pushing hard of using Google Classroom, not so much at the K to 2 level, but especially the grades 3 to 12. And so all that preparation and those devices have really allowed us to not skip a beat here, flipping right into this. Where other school districts, they took a few days off, they took some calamity days, and no offense to them, but I mean, just we were ready to go. Our teachers were ready to go and went right into it. So we're learning again tomorrow. So we have a professional development day that we're doing like this right now. We're doing this virtually tomorrow, and we're just honing into even better, getting ourselves even better, because sometimes you don't even know what questions to ask when you don't even know what information is out there. So they've gotten into it a little bit, and they really are hitting it even harder now, or digging in even deeper. So we're doing even more learning tomorrow virtually. Anything else on that one?
Nope.
The last thing here, just a levy update. I'm sure a lot of you already know this information, but as you probably know, the levy election was extended to the 28th of April. And so we have put additional information out about how to get an absentee ballot. That information is on our website. We also have information on there, that information that we have pulled from our past board meetings and presentations about what if the levy passes, what if it doesn't pass, making sure that everybody is making an informed choice, and making sure that those facts and that information is out there. Again, we have a page on our website with that information. So again, by April 25th, your postmark deadline for applications has to be by then. The completed postmark for deadline for completed ballots are on April 27th, and then in-person completed ballot drop-off is on April 28th. So again, that absentee ballot information is on the Greene County website. It's also, that application is also on our website. So again, we just ask that you make an informed decision and make sure you have all the information. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything on that.
No, thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
I would like to give thanks to Josh Bowles, our technology director, and Dr. Kozad for helping get our technology set up for our board meeting this evening so that we could maintain our social distancing and be compliant with the law. And so we greatly appreciate that. And any other board members have comments for this evening?
No.
Nope.
All right, do we have a motion for adjournment then?
So moved.
Not everybody at once, huh? I think I heard Mrs. Falkman and Mrs. France then for a second. Mr. Long, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
and Mrs. France.
Yes.
Motion passes. We are adjourned at 7:46. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.